At St Andrews Primary School, we have a vision that is in line with the curriculum for Wales. We believe in first-hand experiences for all our learners, engaging, exciting experiences. And when my early years lead, my assistant head teacher Ellis Hill came to me to introduce the ideal of the Froebelian Occupations. It aligned with our vision and our core purpose. With the Froebelian approach, our learners, they're engaged, but more than that, the impact on learning is far wider. We see an increase in literacy, particularly the applications of literacy skills such as reading and writing, and certainly an application of math skills. It's given a real context for our learners to apply their number and measuring skills, and that really raises standards in the areas of maths and numeracy.
2 years ago, we had a really small group of reception children who were really engaged in the block play, had a real high fascination of superheroes and headquarters and vehicles that transformed. So we really used that as an opportunity to help them develop and apply early literacy and numeracy skills. One thing that we noticed about the children, they started to collaborate through lots of lovely communication, and we could really see that there was really early storytelling skills being developed here. What we did then with that is we developed a big story map with the children on large scale mark making, and we were able to talk through their story with them. We also noticed these children were ready for some writing. So just having those resources readily available for the children, like your mark-making pens, your paper, your clipboards, the children then were naturally beginning to also write their story alongside them orally retelling. One little boy within this group in particular, even at such a young age, a reception age, we could already see sort of that stage 5 block play happening with the patterns and symmetry. So just applying sort of that language, things looking the same, how are you going to make the one side of your model look the same as the other? Straight away then you've just got that exploration of symmetry. So it wasn't just that one individual learner. Other children were hearing that symmetrical language and seeing those symmetrical models.
My Culture, My Clothes was a project that started in autumn term to really connect with the children, their families and their friends. The project developed into looking at patterns from the children's culture and heritage. This led on to the children designing their own dresses, and they created a beautiful dress that we have displayed in our classroom now, and they wear it in their role play. This project really helped the children to develop their fine motor skills. They were sewing, they were weaving. Following on from our project, My Culture, My Clothes, the sewing in our class has really taken off in year 1. The children are deeply engaged in using the needles, threading the needles. Our project at the moment is all centred around big cats and animals, and they wanted to create an animal in the sewing. So they chose different fabrics, different techniques, and the children have been making lions, tigers, zebras, using their sewing. So I feel like the progression just from autumn term into spring term, we can see a huge progression within their fine motor and their sewing skills.
In my observations, clay plays a huge part in their language and communication. I love the awe and the wonder that's around it. They've never seen it, and yet they're eager to explore the clay, not knowing what it is. And we always start off with those little questions. What do you think it is? How does it feel? How does it smell? Where do you think clay comes from? And one of the little boys said, it smells like potatoes. And I was like, brilliant, well, where does potatoes come from? And one of the girls said, from the shops. Well, it does come from the shops. Where does it grow? Well, the farmer grows it. Well, where does the farmer? And you could just keep going back and back and back till in the end they realised that it comes from the earth. And then we wanted to know, how can we make it softer? What happens to the earth when it rains? Well, the earth gets softer, the mud gets squelchy. Right, so we then introduced the water, and then they realised that the clay was movable. They could move the clay, they could mould the clay, and it's just getting them to think. You can see their little cogs turning behind their eyes, and when the penny drops, when that light bulb goes on, it's a really nice thing it's just a nice thing. It's a nice teacher moment.
We see high levels of engagement with clay throughout the school, but the difference in the way the children access the clay is very progressive. So in nursery, children are squeezing, pressing, using the water, really, really sensory experience. Then they get into reception and the children are starting to mould the clay a little bit more, representing things. I've come into year 1 now and I can really see the progression again. Children really want to represent something. The children in my class at the moment are creating beautiful, delicate animals using the tools when we've taught them skills that they can then use and consolidate within their environment daily.
Since we've embedded it as a school, obviously our approach started in nursery and then we've moved it forward into reception. I know that when the nursery children come into my reception classroom, they've already had some of those skills and exposure to the occupations and the principles. So it's quite natural for them to come into a reception classroom and almost just be able to pick up where they left in their nursery setting and build on that progression. And I think that's why Froebel at St Andrews has become so progressive. You can see really clearly when you walk into each classroom or each area that children are constantly developing their skills. Woodwork is fantastic because there's so many skills and there's so many opportunities for it to be progressive in the early years. This morning it was very explorative, it was very creative. The children had lots of problem solving because they had an exposure to quite a range of materials today, which were almost giving them a little bit of a challenge with each material they were trying, because yes, they're very used to tapping nails into woods in nursery, but today there was perhaps some more complex, some more fine motor materials being used. Then as my job, it's then trying to move this forward, so looking for opportunities for literacy and mathematical development. So which shapes and which patterns can you see, and reinforcing the work that we've been doing, teaching them 2D and 3D. And then at the end of their activity today, you saw some of the children using mark making to then copy, almost recreate what they'd made in the woodwork. So noticing and being proud of what they've made and drawing the patterns, looking for numbers in what they've made. So many opportunities to open it up. That's sometimes the hard bit as a reception teacher, is thinking, yes, the children have done this, but how can I move their learning forward? How can it support their literacy? How can it support their maths? The more you spend time working within these occupations, the more skilled you become and the more confident you become at asking those right questions. You definitely get a lot more back from the children when the questions are right, especially when you're trying to move their literacy and maths forward.